Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order, and we have the minutes of April 5th.
I move that we approve the minutes of April 5th.
Second. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have warrants 21, the payroll 21P. We have for ratification warrant 20, and just those three.
I move we approve warrants 21 payroll, and 20 ARPA.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? Warrant 21 is for $27,262.01, and that went, among other things, towards fuel, some chloride, our rescue monthly payment, some truck repairs and highway supplies, health insurance, payroll transfers, and the Wyndham South, Wyndham Solid Waste Management District quarterly payment. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's see. Any ARPA?
Other than Charlotte did the annual reporting. So that's done for another year.
Great, good. Okay. All right, so we have Mike Burke from Green Mountain Power and our Brattleboro
Operations Supervisor.
Yep, and our Westminster Supervisor. We have our Emergency Management Director, our Road Foreman, and our Town Clerk. And we're here to talk about the storm and contact information and how to go forward in the future.
Yes, thank you. So what we've actually been visiting a lot of towns after the last storm. We have had quite a winter, as I think everyone here understands. And I know it was incredibly stressful for all of you in the towns, our customers. It was pretty challenging for our team as well. So we completely understand what it was like for what everyone's gone through. Coming into this year, we were fully regulated utility. We have certain criteria that are used in the state of Vermont to talk about what's a major storm, what's not a major storm. Believe it or not, we hadn't had a major storm since Halloween of 2019. We've had a lot of little storms, a lot of gradient wind events, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but nothing that hit the criteria of major damage and a certain amount of customers out for a certain amount of time. Since December 16th, we've had 4. So we went from none in almost 3 years to 4 major storm events in the span of 3 months. What we noticed this year was that we normally have 1 or 2 heavy wet snowstorms, and about the other 8 are the snow we all love. This year, we had 1 snowstorm in November, which isn't the usually time that we get the snowstorms that we like. That wasn't heavy wet snowstorm, and all the rest were wet. So 90% of the storms we had this year were heavy wet snow. Heavy wet snow to us is no different than an ice storm. In fact, I think we probably would even take an ice storm over a heavy wet snowstorm, because in an ice storm, you can put chains on, you can put cleats on your feet, and you can move. In this last event, and as well as the December 16th event, the line crews were dealing with 4 feet of snow, 42 inches of snow with snowshoes. Were tasked to go put a tag on a pole that usually take 15 minutes. We're taking 2 hours to walk out 100 yards and back. So heavy wet snow is pretty much the worst type of thing we deal with. Winds aren't great either, but heavy wet snow. So, just to give you an idea that this winter was extreme. The problem is we've seen this changing climate, and we're pretty sure we're not going back in the other direction. So I'm going to come back to that. I hope to hit all the things that we hope to talk about, and whatever I don't hit, we'll come back to that. GMP serves about 272,000 customers statewide. We serve about 80% of the state in terms of population, about 80% of the state in terms of customers, meters. We have 15 districts statewide, including 2, you're pretty unique, that 2 different service centers, not the only ones, but you're unique of probably 5 or 10 towns across the state that the way the electrical grid works, you're split between 2 districts, 2 different substations, being Brattleboro and Westminster. What we're seeing in terms of the storms is not only is it getting warmer, but this storm stalled. I don't know if all of you saw what the forecast was Sunday night, which with us planning for a storm like this, we actually have 3 forecasters that forecast just for us. And then we also have Albany National Weather Service and Burlington National Weather Service because of the split between Bennington and Windham County and the other 12 counties in Vermont. The map that was out Sunday night was 12 to 18 inches with up to 2 feet on the summits. I think we all know we got 42 inches in Jamaica right down to Route 30, and numerous reports of that almost all over the place. After the storm, we actually went to the National Weather Service and asked them to give us a map of total melted equivalent, which is quantitative precipitation forecast. We figured maybe 3 inches, and which would equate to about a 9-to-1 snow to water ratio. They came back with 5.5 inches at the Vermont-Mass border, 4.5 inches in Stamford, and there's a big hole in their measuring equipment along Route 30, Jamaica, Townsend, this area. We did have a 3.5-inch report in Rockingham, but we're assuming since the snow depth here was higher than anywhere else, that we probably were in the range of 5 inches here. Just to understand how extreme that is, I know you all lived through Irene. Irene was about 6 inches of precip. So having 5 inches of precip all coming down as heavy wet snow, not something, even I was just talking to the line crews before we came here, and I asked one of the line workers who's lived in this area, I think he's almost 50, and he's never seen it. And again, not an excuse, just to what's happening now and why we want to talk about a lot of what we're doing and we're gonna do. But of those 4 major storms I was talking about, 3 of them were the top 10 storms in the last 40 years for customers out and duration and the amount of events we had to respond to. So this year, we already had an urgency to this. Our urgency is picking up even more, and I'll explain what we're doing in terms of urgency. Again, I'm going to get to communications. Okay, what we're doing, the urgency, resiliency. We filed a climate plan in 2020 with the State Public Utilities Commission. And what that climate plan was to address was to try to get our lines what we call storm hardened. We have lines where it looks like it's in the presentation, wish I could show it, but I'll learn to bring a projector. It looks like a diamond, and on top of the line, there's over a 1/2 inch solid steel cable that runs across the top of the line. That stuff, we've had storms like this where trees are laying all over it, the lines stay on. Unless you get a 100-foot, 3-foot diameter pine tree, which occasionally may break a pole, those things stay on. They ride through these storms. We went and visited Grafton Wednesday night, and we had just built a section from Grafton into Athens with this line, and one of the customers that was there was asking us to please put that everywhere. There was trees all over it, the roads weren't blocked, the power was on, everything was fine. So this stuff works. We're also, I'm gonna come back to that on what we're trying to do and what we're trying to do in this area, both on the Brattleboro side and the Westminster side.
Do you have any of that in Dummerston, that type of line? I know they did Kipling Road and that helped out a lot, but I'm not sure what kind of.
That was tree wire.
Right.
Yeah.
There's not really any in the Dummerston area.
Okay.
Like where you see it is on Western Ave.
Oh,
If
okay.
you're heading towards Wilmington, there's some Hendricks there.
There's some on
the
Route
far
30,
end,
yeah.
up by Jamaica, just past the towns in the end.
It's for a 3-phase line as well, not single phase.
Yeah, it's a 3-phase conductor where we just did, if you ever go over by Landmark College,
Yep.
that there's double circuits coming out of Landmark College. Both of those are built with this.
Okay.
And that, we actually have projects literally from the Dummerston substation all the way back to Jamaica, all along Route 30, which is our main backbone that feeds this area. And then also have projects coming from River Road and Putney all the way to where it connects into Brattleboro district near the Pepsi plant that we all see on Route 5 there.
Yeah.
And that feeds this side of the river from the Route 5 side along Route 30 would pick up this portion of Dummerston. So the plan is to get our main lines built with that and then try to do as much underground as we can on the rural residential areas. We all see the trees growing, they're not stopping. And on distribution, the lines that go along the roads that just feed your houses, literally in order to stop tree contacts, we'd have to have right-of-ways like we do for our transmission line. There'd be no trees around your house. The cost to do that would actually be more than to just put the line underground. So now the ties between substations, this bigger conductor, that we have not gotten to a cost-effective manner, burying miles and miles of it. The rural residential areas, we're working to do that as much as we can, depending on Vermont's geology, right? There is ledge out there, but our goal is to get as much of it underground as we can in the next 7 to 8 years to really change the effect that these storms can have on us. So that's the mainline feeders. The rural taps, we're trying to go underground. We're actually trying to go underground, understanding we're going to have some geological challenges on a line that doesn't affect Dummerston, but that leaves from the Townsend Dam area and goes all the way to Dover. And if we have to go up and down 4 or 5 times in heavily treed areas, if we can at least get that underground, that's a victory. And then we'll use this storm hardened conductor that the crews usually just go out and remove trees from after. We've actually had right here on Route 30 on a section where we already have this, we had a car pole accident that broke 2 poles. The steel messenger stayed up, kept the cables about 30 feet off the ground, maybe 25 feet. The crew told me they didn't even have an outage. They set 2 new poles, hung the messenger back on, the thing stays on. This stuff is rugged. So that's how we plan to get more resilient on the grid itself. We also have a program that you've probably heard about, battery storage. We had a program that we originally put out as a pilot that was 1 battery. As we learned more and more, not only was that a tougher installation because the amount of storage in 1 battery made it so the companies putting them in had to put in sub panels. It created a lot more work. We figured out it was less expensive to just put in 2 batteries and carry the whole house. For the customers that have those before a large storm like this, we actually send out a heads up, hey, we have, as long as it's not a surprise, which sometimes we do get them. Even this one, we expected up to 2 feet, we got 4. That was a little bit of a surprise. But we send out communications to our storage customers to let them know this is coming in. It's the type of storm that looks like it might cause some outages. And what that does is allow them to manage their use of those batteries. And we've had customers tell us they've ridden out an 8-day storm, mainly fridge, heat, lights. They're not running hot tubs, they're not running things like that.
So do the customers manage that? I thought Green Mountain Power was able to manage the inflow and outflow from those batteries.
So the reason that if you went out and bought those yourself, it would be a much more expensive product than if you go through our lease program. And the piece you're talking about, we use those batteries to reduce our peak.
Right.
The way our power supply works is we're using the independent New England grid, and there's one manager of the whole New England grid, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, Mass, Rhode Island. And on any given day when New England is at peak, if we shave 15, 20, 30 megawatts off the peak, that could translate to $1 million less cost in our power supply for the year. So we're allowed to offer those batteries at a reduced rate of if you bought it off the street, in turn for being able to reduce our power supply costs over the year. So we manage that part. In terms of what you use in your house, that we don't have a control system that can control, you know, if you're running a hot tub or if you're running something like that. That's why we send out those recommendations, so that we can let the customers know, hey, this is looking bad. You should think about how to manage those. And you know, we have had customers that didn't manage it and it didn't last them through a storm. We've had customers that manage it and it lasts them.
Is the battery lease program still available for people in Dummerston?
Love that question. So right now, in our regulatory process, we are actually capped at 500 batteries a year. We actually have a waiting list that's almost 2 years long right now. We are working right now with our regulators to get that cap removed. And if we're successful there, then yes, it would be available. We're also doing a couple programs around the state called Resiliency zones, where 2 of those systems are a community-based power wall system that help power up a community. The rest of them are more of a utility-based storage system with solar that we can just sectionalize a part of town and keep that part of town on. But yes, we hope to have the battery offering even to more. You know, someday we hope to get to the point where it's just something that comes as part of our electrical service.
And you have no idea the time frame for that, of course, because there's a regulatory situation.
We don't. Right now, we obviously have to prove out every part of cost, every part of how we can reduce it, things like that. So we're not there yet, but you know, we've even thought about battery as a meter. So for instance, these batteries have the ability to measure energy, and that's a way to help offset the cost, but we're just not there yet. I probably don't see it in the next 5 to 10 years, but that is a goal of ours. But we do want to be able to at least offer it to the people that want it. And again, when we see a big storm come in too, if we know it's going to cause outages, we'll back off on discharging them to shoot for the peak too. So we try to leave them when they're needed for the customers. So the larger microgrid, we have one going into Brattleboro at the Three Rivers
Tri-Park.
Tri-Park in Brattleboro. That's another area. Grafton, Rochester, and there's one in Panton that we were actually the first ones in the U.S. to get up and running. It took some engineering because the protection systems aren't used to working off just battery power. They're used to working off spinning generators, things like that. But we did get one up and running, and we use that as a proving point where we can do more. Oops. There I am. Sorry, lost my page here. 1 second. I think we get to communication next, which I know is a part we really want to talk about. So in this presentation, we actually have pictures. So if you do get a chance to look at it, the upper right-hand corner is called cable and conduit. That is the underground we're trying to use. The old style, in the 50s and 60s, we opened a trench and threw cable in the ground. We're starting to deal with some failures on that now. It was called direct buried. It lasted 50 years, which is great, right? So still wonderful. Then we moved to a product where you glue 10-foot sections of conduit together for miles and miles and miles, incredibly labor intensive. We have now, we still use that system in some cases, like a really dense new development or a downtown or something like that. But in the rural areas, we're going with a product called cable and conduit, which is how we've gotten this to be more cost effective and competitive with what it would cost to build an overhead system. And it comes on a reel 2,500 feet long, one reel, one solid piece of conduit. So you literally open a trench, a vibrating plow into the trench, or core boring. you pull it in, when you pull it in, you're done. You terminate it, you can take your overhead down. Whereas before you glued the 10-foot sections for 5 miles, then you blew the string in, then you came in and pulled the wire, then it's, so really a good product. Again, it's taken some getting used to from everyone, but we really think it's the way we're gonna avoid 80-foot trees in a lot of places that we don't avoid them right now.
So are you having good luck with the phone company wanting to bury theirs also with you?
Actually, yeah, they've actually been working with us pretty well with that. Like right now, we're doing it right along Route 9, heading up into Marlboro, where all the communication companies that are on the line there all agreed. They're all working together with us, and they've actually hired our contractor to bury their stuff, so that takes us out of like trying to charge them and coordinate everything together with them. So, but it's working pretty well.
That's the product we used at Eliza's house to go around her place.
Oh, okay.
And then when I called Consolidated, they came and dropped a line in while we had the trench open.
All right.
So that's their incentive, right? We're gonna open a trench,
Exactly.
you know, you bring some wire.
Yeah, and if we have to, we've even talked with them about, listen, if we have to purchase this and get it in for you, as long as you reimburse us, we'll do it. So we're really trying to work with them to make sure. I can't say that there may never be a time when telephones left by themselves on the poles, but you know, hopefully, even if that does happen, people understand. Still, let us get in there because we want to keep the lights on as much as we can, and hopefully, that's not something that stops us.
So was that talked about with the construction going on Route 30 in Brattleboro to Dummerston now?
Yeah, so there's a small project going on to run 3-phase out of Brattleboro and start heading it in this direction. We're also looking at the phone right away, which already exists, all the way down, down to Dummerston Center here. So we're looking to run 3-phase and just keep it in that Hendrix form, use the phone's existing right away, and just continue that just all the way down the road, keep it going to Newfane.
Buried.
No, this would be aerial.
Buried.
Within the phone right away.
So, but while they're rebuilding Route 30, and have it all torn up, was there any talk about trying to bury it at the same time?
There's a few areas where we're gonna try to bury it, but I believe a lot of that base came from the ledge off the side, and there's not a whole lot of at least that's the way I understood it. Like when they originally cut Route 30, wasn't there a lot of blasting and stuff where they took the ledge off the side and flattened it out, heading it out towards the river, and then they paved over top of it. So I don't think we'll have good luck burying in those areas, but there are a few areas where the lines exist behind all the houses, and we would put the 3-phase underground in those areas.
The other problem there too is that this underground that we're running along Route 30 is the type that can tie substations together. So it's that bigger conductor that is quite a bit more expensive to do overhead versus underground. Not that we won't ever do it. It's just in the rural areas, we've literally got it so it's almost on par with the overhead. Where the larger conductor, the conductors that can tie between substations are that big around, where it's just a lot more expensive. You need concrete vaults instead of fiber vaults and things like that. Again, not that we won't do it if we can figure out a way to do it cost effectively, but that's the big wire we're talking about running there.
I think that too, where you're gonna see it a lot of places is in the rural areas. And like I've gone to the town of Marlboro as well as Dover, and we're burying it in their road right of way. So we're putting it 4 foot down underground in the road itself. And then there's certain cabinets and distribution areas where it's going to single houses or whatever. And we're just keeping it in that road right of way. So then that way that takes some of the permitting process off of us because you already have that existing right of way. And then it just makes things run a little bit smoother, and then again too we can remove all those wires from behind those properties, and then we'll work together with the phone companies, Consolidated, Comcast, and whoever else is running in those areas to put their stuff underground as well.
The above lines right now, what run along the road, are those pretty much all in the right of way of the town, or do you have right of ways also? If it's just where they're only like 7 or 8 feet off the road, which is in our right of way, but do you have a right of way also? Or do you just plan on Or did it just
We would have to look up the.
It's a case by case basis.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
And then sometimes the pole is in the right of way, but then outside of the right of way goes our anchor, and then we have to get an easement from the landowner to
Oh,
put the
okay.
anchor.
All right, yep.
We do have, I think it's under Title 30 that allows us to be in state and town rights of way, but you know, a lot of here we're on the old railroad bed as you go into Newfane. And I assume probably there we might have a private easement or a private license. A lot of the places where we're in a town or state right away, we don't because we're there by permit from the town or the state. But it is really, you almost have to look pole by pole to see if there's an easement there.
All right.
Just before we leave the storage, we actually have, believe it or not, 40 megawatts of battery out there now in combination between the power walls in people's homes and the more utility scale things like we have the 4 megawatts in Panton, and we're going to add more of that. But, you know, we have almost as much storage as we do, say, peaker plants or I'm trying to think of another, just the ability to reduce through efficiency. We have as much storage now to do that. So it's pretty neat because we'd love to be able to tell people we have storage, don't worry about it, right? And in terms of reducing the peak, things like that. So pretty proud of that.
Is Panton the Stafford Hill project?
Nope, that's another one. I think that's 1 megawatt of batteries. Panton is 4 megawatts.
Okay.
Or 4 megawatt hours of batteries. But yeah, Panton, Stafford Hill, we're going to have here at Tri-River, we're going to have one in Rochester, and I'm drawing a blank on the other one. I apologize. But we're going to continue to add that. And then there's also through state renewable programs, there's bids out there, just like you can bid on solar, to add more storage to give us access even though we don't own it. So communications and outreach. So we actually, Tiana, I think some of you here are on Tiana's email list already, and if you're not, we need to do that. But we do outreach to all the local emergency planners and a lot of the town leaders. And what that is just, again, to give a heads up of what we're seeing coming. Again, there are like a pop-up thunderstorm sometimes we don't see. Sometimes a winter storm will end up being worse than we expected it to be. So I'm not saying that we're 100% perfect, but in events that we see that we know there's going to be an issue, we'll start communicating pretty early. There's 3 or 4 people on Tiana's team that do that and send out outreach. In terms of the beginning part of the storm, say the first 20, in this case, 48 hours, where we actually didn't stop taking damage. We're trying to figure out exactly the best way to communicate to you that we don't have the ability yet to tell you when everybody in your town is going to be back on, because there's literally still things falling down. You know, we've had many times when these guys will send a crew to go to this call, and we get a call from a fire department and they have to pull that crew in triage and send them to another call that's blocking Route 30 or something like that. So we're trying to figure out what best way to communicate that type of thing so people understand we just don't have the ability yet to tell you when you're going to be back on, because literally things are still falling down. In this storm for 2 days, and I know you all know this, we were literally chasing hazards for 2 days before we really started to restore. The restoration more or less started Wednesday at probably 5 or 6 p.m. when the snow stopped falling. We try to set 1 or 2 or 3 crews in a district to chase hazards. I'm pretty sure both of you literally had all their crews chasing hazards. And you know, if it was what we call a mainline feeder where there's 2,500 customers on it and we have to go clear the road anyway, we just put the wire up there in that case and energize it because it's 2,500 customers. But a lot of places we were literally just working with towns and road crews and just trying to get the road open. And we'll have to get the restoration later because we have to go open another road. In terms of communication like that between road crews, the fire departments have emergency lines that they already call in. We have a whole team that's answering that. They enter them straight into the system. And then these guys have to triage. In this case, we without a doubt had, even though we almost doubled our workforce before this, thinking of the 12 to 18 inches, we ended up with 4 times the workforce by the time we finished it. So we prepared this storm. We ended up with 2,900 separate events, so 2,900 places that we had to send crews to for either an outage or damage or wire down, things like that. And this was statewide too. Originally we had planned it was going to be Bennington, Wyndham, and maybe a little bit into Windsor and Rutland. And as you saw, about every 6 hours, the National Weather Service said, oops, we're gonna add these 2 counties, oops, and it ended up all the way to the Canadian border. So our Montpelier, St. Jay, Middlebury districts were involved pretty heavily, not as bad as down here, but it took us about a day and a half, 2 days to get those districts cleaned up, and then they all came down here as well. So, actually, one more thing before we get to the local communication. So we do the outreach to the storage customers. We actually are trying to figure out how to do geo-targeted robocalls, things like that. We tried it to our whole customer base. The robocall, we got to about 50,000. We want to do better than that. So we're working with the state. They have the geo-targeting they use for floods, things like that. So that is something we're working on right now on how we can, whether we aim at a town or a county. Right now, the state can actually build a geofence, and we're looking at what we can do to hit the broader, our whole customer base, to give them a heads up. What we do right now is we have a list called critical care, and this is where the conversation with local emergency planners comes in. That critical care list is, we have a list, you can actually go onto our website, get a phone number to call our regular number and get on it. If you have a medical device, things like that, where you need electricity to keep those things functioning. We send the same communication out to them that we do the storage customers. Something's coming in, make sure you have a plan. And then during the storm, we actually have a system where any given time during the storm, we can push a button and it tells us how many critical care customers are out of power. It gives us their address and their phone number. Now, as part of what I want to talk about on how we restore power, the way the electrical grid is, we don't have that list so that we can go restore their power. What we have that list for is we actually call those customers. We have a team, usually I think the most we've ever had is 200 or 300. So even though we may have thousands of customers out, there's a smaller number of critical care customers that have medical devices, things like that. And what we do is we call them, we explain what we're seeing, that it might be a multiple day event. What do you have to be able to keep your devices going, or should you make a plan to get help? We do that about every 12 hours during an event like this. And I don't know if you were reached out to at all, but literally, if we find one that really concerns our people that are making those phone calls, we'll actually make a phone call to either Vermont Emergency Management or the local emergency planners and say, hey, this customer's in this situation. Is there any way that you could get somebody out there to check on them? There was, I think it was Newfane, where we actually asked the local emergency planners to go get a customer who didn't have any family around, no ability to move themselves, and they went and transported them to a shelter in Brattleboro. So that we do all during the storm. We've also called fire departments because they've told us that, oh, I'm fine, I have heat, I've got a propane heater in the house. So, we literally triage these customers to make sure that they're okay, and we ask for help from the local emergency planners or fire departments, and if we don't have any luck there, we actually station a Green Mountain Power person in the Emergency Operations Center at the Vermont Emergency Management. And usually, if we can't find somebody local, the emergency management on-site director is pretty good at that. So I wanted you to know that we're already doing that. And any feedback from local emergency planning here, we're happy to talk about how we can do that, and making sure Tiana has who she needs on the list so that we get that information out. And once we stop taking outages, so in this case, almost 48 hours into it, we had a system and an algorithm built into our system that, based on how many crews we have, how many separate calls we have in Westminster, how many separate calls we have in Brattleboro, it will tell us we expect the last customers to be restored in this area at this time. And that is what she'll often email out to the group. For those that have seen that, we actually have a list of 15 different geographic areas in the state. And the reason we do that is it's really hard to pinpoint exactly what time 2 days from now that line is going to come on, for the reasons that I explained, where we may be headed to that line, we're about to assign a crew to that line, and then we do have to respond to emergency calls that come in, whether it's Route 30 block, something like that. So it's so fluid in one of these major widespread events. That's why it's really hard for us to tell you when that 20 customer line is going to come back on. We probably have a good idea when we're going to get the main line on along Route 30, because that's where we're focusing. And I'm going to go over that again too. But so local communication, we're trying to connect the local storm leads with the local road managers, because we often have to work together in terms, we may be there making it safe, and then you can help us with the payloader, push it out of the road. So we're not trying to figure out how to get a 3-foot diameter tree out of the road. So definitely, I know Don just gave it his contact, and I think you've got Justin's now. But what we don't want to do is we don't want everyone calling the local leads, because that's what we're creating Tiana's team for, and our regular call center. Our regular call center, who, we may have 50, 60 people answering the phones internally and externally at any given time. We have a system which can escalate, if a water department's getting low and their generator's breaking down, things like that, they can escalate it to there. And there's a team of probably 5 or 6 of us that monitor that constantly. And that's usually one of us that are calling a town or a water department or something like that back. Because usually Don has a little bit bigger team. He's usually got either 2 or 3 other dispatchers in his office with him. And then Justin, it's a smaller district, we probably have at least 1 other person. So my point being is, if everyone's calling directly to the people that are actually dispatching the crews, it can become a pretty big bottleneck, and they're taking their eye off on where to send them next. That being said, the local road crew connection is a pretty good connection, right? So if you guys had exchanged numbers, that's wonderful. We just don't want every call going through there, that's all.
Right.
Yeah.
I want your numbers.
Yeah.
If you have roads blocked, I need to know.
Yeah.
Right, I think the, this last storm, for example, there was quite a period of time where major roads were blocked, and pretty much a lot of roads. And it was just finding the right people to call. And throughout the storm, plow truck drivers are reporting into me, tree down on whatever. And then I call the normal number and say the road's blocked, or the town truck's stuck on the other side of the trees and I can't get out. I just would like that. And if these numbers work for that, that's great. But I think the roads need to have, for me, and of course, kind of biased maybe, but need to. What do you have a priority? I mean, we were Saturday with the roads to get them open. My house was out of power, and of course, I want power back also, but I realized that the roads, without the roads open, one end of Kipling Road was open, the other end wasn't. If there was a fire, of course, the trucks couldn't get there from Dummerston without going down through Brattleboro. So that's what I would like to know is, when they were having school, we still had major roads blocked. 3 school bus routes couldn't even go, and the rest of the district's having school. And so I questioned, why aren't our school bus routes open at least? We're talking East-West Road, the busiest road in our town, and it's probably busier than parts of Route 5. To Middle Road.
Was that a different storm? Because so just as an example of how this works, so that got escalated, it came through that channel. So we knew about all those roads. What happened is we were trying to triage and make the right decisions, and we had the same thing going on in Putney, we had the same thing going on in Westminster, and so we were trying to get to them all and we could see it. And I actually saw where you were trying to communicate. I talked to Justin and we had a crew that not only cleaned up the Middle Road, East-West Road, Kipling Road, and we actually sent his crews right into the Brattleboro district since they were close to there, and they did all of those too.
Kipling Road wasn't done, but until Saturday. Dutton Farm, they did Dutton Farm, they did, that was Wednesday. They sent a crew down with Maddie and whoever she had with her. Yes, they were opening them up Wednesday, those major roads.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately because of the amount, how widespread this was, we were actually doing the same thing in Brattleboro, still trying to get roads open. Mm-hmm. And our storm plan actually says clear roads first.
Okay, that's all right.
Yes, so you can rest assured there.
Okay.
Again, the problem is when we get so much and and that's what was happening, and then it wouldn't stop snowing. So every time we cleared one, we'd drive away and we'd hear about another one. But when you do call in through that other number, our system actually puts a flag for a wire down, it puts a stop sign for a roadblock, so we can see it all. Unfortunately, there were so many in this case, we were having to triage, but that's where those direct connections can come. And hey, I know you probably know about this, but I need that road open, right? Because in the end, the people running it are still human and trying to make the right decisions, but with the local connection, if you guys can make that, that's wonderful.
I just don't like bothering people because it's the same as, when I'm working, I don't want any unnecessary calls either.
So the people that I talked to during the storm and I had been in contact with since Monday would have been Tom Goddard, the fire chief, Putney, Scott Pickup, the city manager for Rockingham, Andy Howard, who's the road manager up there. And those guys they feed me information that I use to help me decide where things need to go. So like East-West Road, for example, was blocked on both ends. So the people in the middle were essentially stranded. Westminster West Road.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Excuse me. Sorry. So some roads that you have access from either end.
From one end, but not the other. We were making those types of decisions. And
definitely. We had 15 roads like that.
Dead end roads.
Yeah, where people just.
And then driveways as well. So
right.
people couldn't go on driveways. So.
Yeah. So. Right. So you'd rather have us call those numbers unless it's a.
If you have an emergency road that needs to open, you need to call me.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I would prefer you call me as well.
Oh, okay. All right.
But what I want everyone to realize, it's making into the system when other people. So when you call, we may have 5 reports already of that.
Yeah.
It's just the urgency thing is. I don't want people to think that we're not actually getting that data when you call into the other line, because they actually enter it, hit enter, and it goes straight into the system these two are looking at.
They kind of like what I would prefer to, like if you make that call, it goes into my system, and then you get a list together of what your priorities are, and just give that to me all in one lump.
Okay.
And say, and like if you prioritize them, like number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, so I can work off of that. Because Brattleboro was doing the same, like because Pete Lynch was giving me a list, and he prioritized it, and if you can get to these tomorrow, and then 2, like I can say, hey, look, this is where my crews are right now. I'm working in that direction. I'll have that open by this point. So, and like, if we can like, for me, it works good if there's almost like a set time during the day, like say 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's your time. You call me, you give me your list of priorities, and I can tell you where my crews are at that point in the day and where they're gonna head into the evening. so that you have an idea of
Yeah.
when we're gonna get there too, and
Obviously, if Route 30 is blocked and we don't know about it yet, you don't have to wait till 2.
You gave me a pretty good list of roads that first morning you and I spoke.
Right.
That's what
And the
I'm-
hardest thing there was like, do you wanna, jump around to the priorities or
Well-
just wanna dig in and have that,
That list of roads
thing?
for Dummerston went on a whiteboard list the size of that curtain. It
Yeah.
was all the other towns, so,
Yeah,
it was a lot.
right. Okay,
So if we know about it, we'll get there.
I mean, safety is our
As soon as
number
we
one
can.
priority, so like, if there's wire down and it's still energized or it's burning or, the tree's got somebody blocked in that needs to get out, like obviously safety is our number one priority and we wanna take care of those first.
yeah, contacts. The other thing is I saw they have a tree pruning crew down on Middle Road today, or in that area. And I was just wondering, do you have a good contact for problem trees? Like after the storm, a lot of doubles split, and the singles are standing there. All right.
So I'm normally what happens is like, if you call those in, I'll send the line crew out there to take a look at it.
Okay,
And then I'll put in a request for Asplund to come out and take care of those.
All right.
Like, so lately I've been, putting in like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So,
Yeah.
Because people are driving by and they're like, oh, that looks a little dangerous.
yeah,
So, yeah, we can take care of those.
okay. I was just wondering.
Again, you can contact me on
All right.
some of those.
Okay.
Sort of related to that, it says, over the last 3, 4, or 5 years, I've heard this from other residents, but my own experience is that when somebody from Green Mountain Power or saying that they're representing Green Mountain Power, come around and say, can we take these trees, can we cut these trees down? The ones that are near the road, because they'd be a hazard to the lines. And that people say yes, and they never come. Nobody ever comes. Have you experienced that, or?
We have a system where, so usually it's working the other way where a customer will call and again, if you just call through the normal 1-800 number, they enter a ticket, it goes straight to the general foreman that run the tree crews. They go out and look and they make an assessment if it's a threat or not. All I can think of is if we approached them that was about to be on the cycle maybe, and we probably will get there. What do you think? If we approached them and then we didn't come back?
Yeah, it's a 7-year cycle, so.
Oh, it's a 7 year. Okay, 7. That makes.
But I don't know when they approached you either.
Yeah.
I mean, we could tell you when every circuit's due to be trimmed again.
Oh, you know what? It could be a capital project
That
too.
could be too, yeah.
So if we're rebuilding a line or something and we're waiting to get the permits, that actually might be more like it. Because if we're looking to take a whole stand of trees,
Yeah. Well, this was Middle Road. There were several people that I talked to on Middle Road that this happened to. If that's helpful at all, I don't know.
yeah, we could look and see if it's about to. Yep.
Whereabouts on Middle Road?
Well, from from the top down to about halfway, I think.
Okay, so that's the Westminster lines there.
Yeah, we can check on it.
Oh, they got ambidexter through there.
So it is probably something we want to rebuild, right? Yeah, okay. This is great. It's better just to talk and ask questions. I did want to talk, I think we mentioned the Route 30, we're going to rebuild all of Route 5. Once we get those done, we're going to start to work up the east-west road, things like that. We want to get the main lines storm hardened first. Again, if there weren't trees being knocked over in every event, the lines are just fine. On distribution, if we only have 10-foot clearance and there's an 80-foot tree, the math just doesn't work because that's what we get. We get 10 feet from the outermost conductor when we trim. So it's not gonna, if a healthy tree fails with 5 inches of precip in it, our trimming program is not gonna address that. This storm hardened, it'll ride through most of them. And then in the areas where it's smaller conductor, again, that's why we're trying to go underground there. We've got some pictures of some line crews out in the field in this one where it was literally, oh no, technical issues all the time, battery, but you can see it was literally up to their waist. Community outreach. Oh, this particular storm plan, I mentioned how we use 5 different forecasters. One of the slides in here shows that. We actually have outage prediction built into that. I think the original forecast for this one was about 500 outages. We got 3,000, affecting 104,000 customers. We had actually brought in 55 crews, almost doubling our workforce ahead of this. And, you know, to give you an example of if we had had the higher prediction, the wind event that happened 2 days before Christmas, we had 140 crews here ahead of time. That was like a week ahead of time they were talking about that. This one, it ramped up, then it ramped down, then it ramped up. Okay, customer outreach, we hit that. So the grid restoration. This has a little bit to do with the point about critical care customers, how we can't, the reason we call them and try to help them make decisions to keep themselves safe is so, I know maybe most people know this, but we hear a lot from customers, you're not even working, you're doing nothing, I haven't seen a truck. Well, with the electrical grid, we actually we have to start with the transmission lines, the high voltage lines that go between substation to substation. If that line is down, we can work on the distribution along Route 30 and along the side roads for a week. You're still going to be out. So we start with the transmission, which I think we had 3 or 4 faults on the transmission that we had to go. Luckily, it's a loop system, so we could sectionalize. Refeed it this way. At one point, we did lose both sides for about a 4-hour, 6-hour period. But with the transmission, most of it's looped, which is looped means it starts, believe it or not, the southern loop, which goes probably it starts in north of Brattleboro, heads down to Vernon, and then goes all the way over to Pickett Hill in Bennington. And it also has what we call a 115 kV injection in Newfane. So it's not really that far. There's a nice stiff injection into it in Newfane as well. But we can sectionalize any one of those as long as the other section is still in. And usually on now the battery's dead. Usually that doesn't happen, but we have had a few storms where it has. We have to go back, get that transmission on. Then we have to go to the substations. What I keep referring to as the mainline feeder, it's the mainline 3-phase that comes out of the sub, and in this case, most of the time travels down Route 30 all the way back to our East Jamaica sub, and then beyond that, our Rawsonville sub. Those mainline feeds have to be on. If they're not on, we can't even think about going to the side streets and the side taps and the Wardsboroughs and places like that. So that's what we're trying to explain to our critical care customers, and that's why sometimes, even though you don't see a truck, we are working to get your power back on, because without those other lines, we can't even get your line on that goes to your house. So I just wanted to make sure people had an idea of how that worked. And
I got a question on that. And it's I just always wondered. But so CV and Green Mountain, they combine right on Middle Road, and there's poles there, and there's only 100 yards.
So
why isn't there wires?
Well, we've already started kind of connecting those things together. So along Route 5, just up from the Pepsi place.
Okay.
From Leader there.
Last week.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
We put a new feed in, like the same thing. It was like 3 spans of wire, and then we connected that section. So a little bit more for system reliability, because the line coming out.
Oh, that would make sense to me.
Like in the past 5 years, I think they've had 35 outages in that section of Dummerston from the feed coming out of Putney, where Brody's Road, which is over there, kind of by Full Flex.
Like a mile.
Yeah.
Right. That has only gone out 5 times in that 5-year period. So now we're feeding it from that direction in hopes that it's better system reliability for those customers.
So what it is, it's all about exposure, right? So we're doing the same thing. We're changing the Grafton and Athens feed to the Westminster substation. It's cutting the length from the customers in Grafton and Athens from 15 or 16 miles all the way back to Chester to 6 miles to the Westminster sub. So because of us coming together back then, we're able to do these things, and we're really trying to expedite that. The line that we talked about building on Route 5 from River Road and Putney all the way back to Brattleboro will actually create a tie between that substation and the Putney substation. So if one or the other goes down, we could carry one or the other.
Right.
It'll also storm harden that whole line too. So
Right.
the same diamond things with the steel on top, that'll pretty much anything that would have normally affected a bare wire, it will keep the lights on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and kind of that Route 30 corridor to feed out of North Brattleboro too. That'll help with, I think it was 2 summers ago, we had an issue where the substation went down in the middle of the summer, and we could only pick up a certain amount of customers in the Dummerston area, feeding down from Jamaica and a little bit from North Brat. But now that'll all be connected, and then that way, when we do have an outage like that where there's failed equipment that's going to take us all night to repair, that way we can give everybody power again.
yeah. We're putting in bigger conductor. In other words, in that same diamond configuration, it's a much bigger conductor that can carry the loads either way. You just made me think about the self-healing too. So we have a system now where we've already got many up and running, and I think we have 28 more on the drawing board. And what it is we have electronic protection equipment that can now look both directions. And if Chris Gruger, that where we're going to rebuild all of Newfane. We hope to do this summer, by the way, which I'm going to get to that in a minute too. All along Route 30, we can actually put these on the system along the main line, and they sense whether there's voltage behind them or a fault, like a tree in front of them. And if they lose voltage behind them and there's no fault current hasn't traveled through them to get to the tree, they know that the line ahead of them is clear, and in 5 seconds, they'll just turn back on and re-energize that section of the line.
That's crazy.
We have 3 in service right now. The Burlington International Airport. Did anyone ever watch the Super Bowl in Atlanta? Do you remember that? We didn't want to be them. Okay, so we actually have 2 feeds coming into the Burlington International Airport, and this spacer cable stuff that I'm talking about, it's got these devices on either side, and if that goes down, within 5 seconds, it'll be back up and running. And we're going to continue to push that. You know, these tools weren't even available 10 years ago. So if you're asking why haven't we done this before, a lot of this is just coming to fruition now. So we do plan to do more and more of those too, and we still have to go out and fix the problem, but hopefully the customers will be back on. Dover, Wilmington's another good place to do that, where we have capability to tie those 2 substations like that as well. I know that's not here, but we are looking all over the state for that.
The worst roads, or some of them are east-west road from, that 3-phase that comes up to Miller Road, and it's the uncoated wire what tends to, is there any plans for putting that in?
East-west road?
Yes.
Down the road there will be after we get Route 5 hardened up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that feeds our town office and.
West Hill going up in Putney, West Hill going that way, East-West Road.
Okay.
We have some big plans, and we want to get to them as soon as we can. I can't give you an exact.
No, I was just curious if.
We did a bunch on West Hill this year already. We changed out a bunch of barrel wire to
I know the
tree
stuff we
wire.
did on Kipling Road has made all the difference.
Yeah,
It's,
and that was just tree wire. That wasn't even
Yeah.
the steel. But again,
it's.
if you can have a branch or a tree lay on it now, and somebody calls us, we go out, remove it, the customers never knew it happened, right? So that's the goal.
Yeah.
I just got the presentation up on my phone again here. After the grid restoration piece, that same storm, we had one customer in Wardsboro that thought it was just Wardsboro, and we explained after how widespread this was. And if you look at that slide, you can see, I think New Hampshire they get up to like 110,000, Maine was at 200,000. Our peak, we were at about 40,000. And New York, I think, what are they here? They're at 35,000. This was 8 o'clock Tuesday morning. It kept climbing. So I wish I had taken another snapshot later in the day, but the Northeast has experienced 74% more heavy precipitation. since 1980 than we did previous. And what that is, we all know that we've been having drought, right? Up until about a year ago. I think the southeast part of the state was probably one of the worst. But what happens is we get extreme precipitation events. Remember Putney last year lost River Road. They lost in that one thunderstorm where they got 3.5 inches of rain in an hour. This storm we just had was 5 inches. You can't really say that it's extreme because right now we're getting them quite a bit. But for extreme precipitation events, both in the winter and the summer, the Northeast has seen a 74% increase just in the last 40 years. So again, we don't think this is gonna stop. That's why we have these plans. The piece that I haven't talked about yet that we're also doing is the lines that we build to your house, depending on whether you're a 1 acre town or a 10 acre town, this has to do with Act 250. If we're in a 10 acre town, we can build, rebuild 6 miles of this line I'm talking about in place and build another 4 miles of new corridor, and it doesn't trigger any Act 250. If you're in a 1 acre town, because you don't have a development review board, then it's just the way the regulation works. We actually have to get a full 250 permit to rebuild just the lines along your homes. Because of the fact that we've actually had some projects in permitting and trying to meet the criteria to actually file for permitting, and because of the fact that what we do in a 1 acre town is no different than a 10 acre town, we have asked the legislature for some relief because we don't even want to go through another winter with some of these lines not being storm hardened. I know that both senators for Windham County and also a couple of representatives I saw some literature they put out. We actually held a meeting and they're all supportive of this. But just know we're working on other ways too that we can hopefully get a lot of this done in a much more urgent factor than what we've been able to do in the last few years. There's only one 10 acre town in this area along Route 30 and it's Newfane. All the other towns are 1 acre towns. So
Now, could you just let us know what we need to become a 10 acre town? Because I thought we had a development review.
So I was thinking Route 30 out there. So Dummerston, Putney, Westminster, Rockingham are 10 acres.
Oh, okay.
Everyone else is 1 acre.
All right. Okay.
But sometimes if the project crosses between, it still triggers it. So we're working all through that. Like I said, we have big plans over the next 4 to 5 years to get a lot of this taken care of. We're starting in the areas that are seeing the worst weather first, which is you're not quite ground zero, but you're right on the edge of it. Our mid elevation areas, such as the, Jamaica, Halifax, Dover, Townsend, Newfane, your upper elevations, we're seeing gradient winds now, the same temperature and moisture in the air that we're talking about also causes lower pressure, stronger storms hitting up against higher pressure, stronger high pressure systems. And I'll give you, for instance, last Monday, we had winds predicted to 40, 45 on the summit. We had winds of 51 miles an hour all the way down to the Connecticut River, and we did get some outages that day, including the line that goes from Townsend to Dover that really got beat up in that heavy wet snowstorm. So we're doing this not just for heavy wet snowstorms, we're doing this because the winds are changing, heavy wet snow is changing, we're getting warmer. We expect northern Vermont to be dealing with the same thing probably in another year or two. Right now, if I had to draw a line across the state, from about Route 2 south is where we're really seeing it. Route 2 north, it's sticky, but it's not like it is down here. But we expect that. If you look at all the forecasts, you'll sometimes hear them say it's a drier snow in northern Vermont. As fast as it's moving, we don't expect that to continue.
That's the way it was here. It was just up in elevation. We had more snow, but it was drier, so it didn't take down as many lines.
Yeah.
Oh.
So sorry to talk a lot.
Well, you're doing a lot.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot. You know.
We are, and you know, we're completely aware of how these storms are affecting our customers. We don't like it. We don't like how it's affecting our teammates, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that we're addressing as in every way we possibly can. So,
Any other questions for him?
No, this is great.
Thank you for all the work.
Yeah,
thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And I like I said, I know it was stressful for the customers. I know those of you that are out doing the town's work, it was incredibly stressful too. And I appreciate that, and we got through it, right? Yeah.
We'll do better next time.
Yeah. Yeah, we're always looking at ways that we can improve. You know, that storm was definitely different than others.
It's the worst one I've ever seen.
Yeah, and our line crews are telling us the same thing. But what I worry about is if we continue, if the storm stall. This storm stalled. That's why it didn't move. The high pressure system locked it in. And I mean, 5 inches of melted equivalent is a lot of precipitation.
Yeah.
So we need to figure out how to get through them in a better manner. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for coming. Thanks, all of you.
Very informative. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, and any, like Don's question on burying in the right of way and anything like that, you know, if we approach you, we'll take all the help we can. We're gonna be at least 36 inches of cover, so we're gonna be down far enough, but in some areas where there's a lot of ledge, it may be the only option to go right in the shoulder.
Right, I think it's a good idea, and I don't mind it. I just, I heard that we should actually come up with, I don't know if it's an ordinance or a, you know, on the other towns have like guidelines made up what they want, or are you pretty much just try to go 36? And
We have standards, it's a minimum.
We've actually been going 4 feet down in the road right away, and then if we can't get that, then we'll encase it in concrete. And the other thing is we've been doing as well is while we have an open trench going, if there's culverts in that area that you see need to be redone,
yeah.
we'll if you supply the culvert, we'll put them in.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually we just file a town permit to get permission to do it. And we do have standards. Our standards actually say a minimum of 36 inches. We are trying to go 48 in the roads just to make sure we're safe.
Yeah, we had fiber optics put in on East West Road on part of it. And right, some of that isn't that deep.
Right.
So that's why I was just wanting to make sure that.
Yeah, I mean, just due to mud season and then like regrading, retreading, and stuff like that, we want to make sure it's deep enough that it's out of your way.
So what types of cables can go into your conduit? Can fiber optic be combined with electric, or?
It could be in the same trench, it's in a different conduit.
Different
So
conduit.
like what's going on up on Route 9 right now, our cable and conduit's it's a 2-inch piece of conduit, the cable's already in it. And then right next to us, Consolidated's running their 2-inch, First Light, Comcast,
Yep.
DV Fiber, they're all running in that same trench. They're a foot apart from us. And then in their case, like they don't already have that fiber in the conduit, so they'll pull in new wire, but ours is already there. It kind of makes it a little bit easier.
So
They
it makes
actually
sense
slow
to,
down our installation because we're just rolling out that 2,500 feet, kicking in the ditch. They're putting sticks together.
We're pushing them to look at it because I'm pretty sure they make the same product.
Well, this
with-
last
with
group's
fiber,
brought out
so-
a fair amount of flex stuff already, so it's already one piece. There's only, I think, 1 or 2 of the companies that are actually putting regular 10-foot sticks of PVC together.
but it sounds like it would make sense to coordinate all of these different users of
Yeah.
conduit and
Yeah.
buried lines.
And we are doing that, and a lot of the times we're successful. I just hope if we're not successful because a company says, no, we're not gonna go with it, it doesn't stop us from going. That's our biggest concern, because it is just different, right? But yeah, we're being more successful than I thought we would be. And I think if we can get them to use the cable and conduit with the fiber, they'll probably be even more open to it. And not have to glue 10-foot sticks together for miles and miles. So,
Great.
okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll follow up with Tiana. I think you already have the emails going back and forth, and if there's others that you want on that local emergency planner list, please let her know and we'll get you added.
Great.
Okay?
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Well, let's go to the road foreman's report. And let's see. No FEMA update. Is there? Nothing.
Yeah, all Charlotte, and she said she gave you a report a couple weeks ago, but
Yep.
she's still waiting for like 24,000, around that.
Okay.
The erosion at Slab Hollow, I asked Lori about that email and she couldn't find it either and I didn't see it. So I'm not even sure.
It's,
The one that had the tires in the
Yes.
photograph?
Yeah.
Yeah.
someone along Slab Hollow with an embankment that had tires.
Lots of tires.
Okay, that's probably Tebow's, I would
I was gonna
say,
say,
right in that area.
If I remember correctly, that was on private property, so
Yes.
FEMA was not going to get
Right.
involved.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
I guess that was their question,
I
if
think it
FEMA was gonna
Yes.
get involved? Yes, it was, FEMA was not gonna get involved.
Right, that's,
Was there some reference to, do the tires create a problem though? I think he was
The
asking
person,
that,
the
but,
resident was concerned
Yeah.
about the tires being a health issue.
yeah.
I do think the state definitely knows about it. We've all met there. So I would think if they needed them cleaned up, I mean,
Right.
because it was state representatives
right.
that met, engineers,
Right.
environmentalists, whatever, they were,
Yeah, I think everybody knows about them, so I think it's out of the town's hands.
There was a guy named Lee Jacobson Moore, MOHR. Slab Hollow Bank Erosion,
Yeah,
April
that
6th.
name doesn't ring a bell.
Okay. Well, we'll forward it to you. I wonder if it's more issue for, we had someone upstream there with bank erosion and,
Yeah.
it was the same thing. FEMA looked and it's on private property.
Right.
There was
Right.
nothing that the town could do.
right.
But I don't know if this person has been in touch with the Agency of Natural Resources.
I would say that would be a good
Yeah.
place to start for him.
And Scott
Jensen?
Jensen might be.
Yeah, he might be able to guide him in the right direction.
Yeah, give them, if there are any resources that could help, he might, so I'll put together that, could send it to him.
The paving bid,
Yeah.
Lori and I worked on writing that up, and it is to finish East-West Road up to Dummerston Center.
Mhm.
And we'd like to put it out to bid tomorrow morning, or
Okay.
tomorrow hopefully.
All right.
It's to mill, grind down 2 inches, get the crown restored where we can. And then overlay 1 3/4. It's pretty much the same thing as last year. Just, it's about a mile and, 5,500 feet or so.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so we need a motion to,
I'll make a motion that we approve the invitation to bid for paving.
okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Lee. So that'll go out and 2 weeks, we'll open bids.
yeah, I think on there, I'm not sure if that's 2 weeks, I think it is actually May 5th.
Might be.
Or, yeah, I don't know if I have a copy of it, but I do. Bids need to be back May 3rd. So that's good.
Okay, yes, 5 PM, May 3rd. It should be in by 5 PM on May 3rd. Okay. we'll open them then, give them to you, and
Yep. You
then
know,
we
2 weeks.
approve them
Yeah. I know.
on your recommendation. Okay. Let's see, we have,
Grant and
let's
aid.
see, grant and aid, yep, we have to approve. And this will be submitted electronically. Do you want to just give us a,
Yeah, so the grant and aid is it's pretty much a yearly grant that all we have to do is apply for it and we get it. It's for stone line ditching, grass line in hydrologically connected areas. This work will be done. We're supposed to bring up a certain percentage of the roads by a certain time. We're doing fine on that. And this is just saying we want to participate in it. I think most towns are doing it now. There were a few holdouts, but I think most of them are doing it now.
okay. So, could we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we sign the letter of intent for the grant and aid.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? There's no place where we can actually sign it, so I guess we just have to approve it.
As long as, I guess, it's in the minutes that we approved it, then
Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Approved. Make note.
Okay, so I have there's another project we're gonna work on, and that's cutting the trees on East-West Road. A lot of these are the ones that are leaning over the road, and we're gonna actually hire a company to come in with a shear to cut them, so then the road doesn't have to be blocked as long. And then we'll haul them all to the shop and process them there.
Okay.
So we're planning on a 2-day process. It'll just be delays.
Okay. So these would be hazard trees.
Yeah, they're hazard trees, and there's quite a section along there. And it's an excavator run shear, so the time to do it is before we pave. And so if it does hurt the pavement at all, it
And it's not work that Green Mountain Power would do, but
No.
it's not power line related.
No, this is actually, there's no power lines all the way down through until you hit the garage. So it's, that is where that underground fiber is though.
Mhm.
And that's why it's underground, because there's no poles. So we're just about around once on the grading. Just a few roads left, and then we'll have to go back and get the real early ones again. We've been hauling sand to the shop. I think we're gonna have to haul probably 3,500 to 4,000 yards. We've been putting out some gravel. And when we get a free moment, we still have, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks of storm cleanup to do. We have trees everywhere, are in piles. It's just a matter of finding the right time. The chipper ended up going over, needed a water pump. So that's been over there for a week and a half, 2 weeks for that.
The trees that you sort of pushed off a little bit away from the road, those are the ones you're gonna come back and pick up, is that right?
Some, where, of course, where they look bad, or if they're near somebody's house. If they're over the bank enough, not going to.
And it's okay to put these in a stream, is that right?
No, you shouldn't actually put,
So
the stuff I pushed over across from your house, yeah, I did that.
yeah, okay.
Yes, I chopped it up but it's not in the stream.
Oh, it's not
It's
as
not an issue, no. No, because if you put a small piece of wood in it, it'll just go down and plug the culvert, and then,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, those kind of things. There's definitely gonna be more brush along the roads than we've seen, because there's no way we can chip it all. We're just gonna get the, you know, the worst looking stuff, the stuff that's bothering, gonna hindrance our progress. Yeah, you work a long time to get them good, and then they get ruined all in one night.
Yeah.
2 nights. But yeah, we'll get as much as we can. It's just a matter of time.
Okay, great.
I think that's all I have. I don't know if you had anything else.
Any other questions for Lee? Okay, all right. Well,
All right, have a good night.
Thanks for listening, Lee. Okie dokie. Is there anything you'd like to review under correspondence for information? Okay, under new business, any ARPA updates, discussion, anything you want to go over?
Thank you for the summary, by the way, that's very helpful.
Yeah, that was helpful. Okay, back to the Recreation Board and the GoFundMe proposal. Maeve got that, did you see that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, everyone saw that she seems to be right on board with that.
Yeah.
Seems as though Charlotte has a plan to go ahead, you know, if we approve, with a separate checking account.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's...
Yeah, the fact that she was an auditor in the past makes me pretty confident that it'll all be done well.
Yeah. And I guess Charlotte and Lori are talking about setting up a system so they can take credit card payments for things like taxes or... So a motion to approve setting up the account to receive GoFundMe.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve setting up an account for a GoFundMe project for the Recreation Board.
Second that.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. I can let Charlotte know and also let Nate know. No, and I'll also let Margaret, person who came to us a few meetings ago, let her know. And Margaret. All right, let's see. There's an open seat for the select board. We received a letter of interest from Todd Davidson. Have you heard from anybody else?
Yeah, there was another
There's
one
another
who,
Was there?
Yeah,
Art T somebody, or, let me find it.
yeah, I haven't.
I haven't seen anything else.
It was the end of last week. It was an email that came through.
RJ Simpson.
Yeah,
You know,
I didn't know. He lives on Kipling, or Kipling.
Yeah, Air Force career, then
No, he lives on Upper Dummerston Road.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
okay,
settled in Dummerston in 2019.
okay, well,
So we've got 2 candidates who submitted letters.
Yeah.
do you want to set up, we just start, come in early and have a chat with,
Yeah, just come in early and do that.
okay.
5:30.
So we've got 2 people. You think 15 minutes is enough, or?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
I didn't see that AJ Simpson email.
Art-
Maybe you could just
yeah.
forward it to me. I'll get in touch with both of these people. If we have anyone else come, I'll go ahead and see if we can, add another 15.
I've had one person mention to me that they're interested.
Yep. You want to get in touch with them, or you want
Sure.
to let me know?
Yep.
So
I'll
we'll
let you
start.
know.
That'd be 5:15 before our next meeting. Great. And if we have another person, let's keep it to 4 next. At least. Great. Okay. Any other information about that? Okay, let's see. Brett Castine, who does the lawn mowing for the town properties and the cemeteries. And I had, this is a form that has to be approved because of the workers' comp situation.
I think so.
Yeah. And we have done it before, and let's see.
I think it was a 2-year contract
Yeah.
too.
Yes, this is just, I think this came from VLCT. This is a contract for services for small contractors or independent contractors. So we just have to approve this if we'd like Brett to actually do our mowing.
Well,
I'll make a motion that we sign the contract for services with Brett Castine for lawn mowing.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, has to be signed 2 different pages, I guess. Okay, well, that brings us to the part of the show where we,
So I'll make a motion that we recess the meeting and convene as the Liquor Control Board.
Second that.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, let's see, it's not in the highway report, must be under new business. There it is, okay. So, let's see, Putney Mountain Winery would like to have a special events permit at the KOA campground on Route 5 on May 20th and then May 27th.
I'll make a motion that we approve the liquor catering request from Putney Mountain Winery for an event at the KOA campground on Route 5 on May 20th and May 27th.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
So I'll make a motion that we adjourn as the Liquor Control Board and reconvene the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's see. Is there any other new business?
I'll make a motion we adjourn.